family is, my biggest accomplishment.
Perfect,
Appreciate it.
perfect. Yes. And I agree. That is your biggest achievement
Thank you.
by far.
Although
Wow.
you don't know my kids. They're a little bit of a thing. No, I'm just-
Welcome to Revelations, the place where we speak truth to power. I'm Cole Johnson, and I'm so glad you're able to join me. How should I introduce my next guest? Well, I will do it this way. He has a varied list of entertainment and business credits. I mean, it's insane. You name it, he's done it. Acting, singing, instrumental playing, voiceover work, being a radio personality, a writer. Oh, did I even mention that he has entrepreneurial interests too, in alcohol, food, games, and toys as well? Well, if I didn't, I apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, author, radio host and producer, actor, singer, musician, and wrestler, Brimstone. And this is his revelation. Well, how you doing, brother? Welcome to Revelations.
Finally, Brimstone has made it to Revelations, hanging out with Cole. It's going to be an unbelievable time. I've been looking forward to seeing your smiling face and making some conversation happen. And here we are. So here we are. What are we doing? What are we doing today?
Well, we're celebrating you, sir.
Me?
That's what we're doing. Yes, you.
I think we should celebrate you. You're more important. I think it would be a lot more fun.
Thank you. But I as much as my ego would like that, I think it wouldn't work quite so well. But well, as you can see, this is a wonderful personality, and I've actually grown to like him in the very short time I've actually gotten to know him.
Oh, you're too sweet.
And you see this engaging personality. Well, we're going to even open it even further with our segment opener called "Open the Way." Now, with Open the Way, conversation starts when vulnerability enters the room. And obviously, I don't think we'll have an issue with vulnerability here. But all of the things I've mentioned, voiceover acting, author, musician, all of those things strike me as either you grew up in LA or New York. But seeing how you are, I would lean more toward the East Coast. So how was your upbringing in the New York area, or am I wrong in alluding to you growing up in New York?
No, I'm New York. I'm Long Island. What do you call it? It's I had the best and worst of both worlds. What do you call it? My mother and my father had gotten divorced when I was very young. My mother had lived in Uniondale with myself. Uniondale is what do you call it? A predominantly black area. I was one of the only white kids there. I grew up with people like Busta Rhymes and Leaders of the New School and cats like that. We all came from the same area, and what do you call it? Around the same time. So what do you call it? While my mom and I were there, my father was in Dix Hills, which is a very rich area. So it was like, I had a very weird upbringing because, I did have the best and worst of both worlds in terms of, financing, you know what I mean? Financially rather, my mother, was kind of, trying to make things work. And my father, wound up hitting a good drive and started doing really, really well for himself. And, the fact of the matter is I learned, how to, how important working hard was, how important making money was, how important saving money was, how important
Mm.
being good to people was.
Yeah.
And I got all that good stuff from my mother, and then I got all the good stuff from my father. I got
Hmm.
the drive, I got the relationship building, I got, you know what I mean? So there were different things I got from both. But for me, I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Right.
It was a great upbringing. My mom was fantastic, and I love my dad. And matter of fact, I'm going to see him next week. So at the end of the day, I'm happy, man.
Yeah.
Would I have liked to have had a little bit more money growing up? Sure, but at the end of the day, you don't respect what you have after you earn it. You know what I mean? Coming from a background like I had.
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally understand that. Yeah. Well, the hip hopper in me, when you mentioned Long Island, you actually mentioned names that I was throwing in my head. I was like, Long Island, okay, Airbnb, Rakim, Public
Mm-hmm.
Enemy, Lisa New School, and then you mentioned
EPMD.
Eleanor West. Oh,
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, wow, all
Yeah.
right,
I just spoke with Dinko literally yesterday. Literally
oh
yesterday.
wow,
He messaged me to congratulate me. I just won. I didn't win. I just was put out there for 40 over 40 for Podcast Magazine. What do you call it? Which was great. One of the biggest influencers in podcasting. So that was a beautiful thing. And but I just spoke with Dinko. It's we try to chat as often as possible, but schedules are just absolutely ridiculous.
right,
But you keep it real. Dinko, C Brown,
hmm,
C Brown and I, we lived literally behind each other. So what do you call it? And him and his sisters were the original Black Doublemint twins, who
hmm,
I'm still very close with to this day. So you know what I'm saying? Like, the
wow,
Uniondale family sticks together, and
hmm,
a lot of talent came out of that little area.
yeah, hmm,
LL's cousin lived right down the block, so I used to see LL all the time.
right,
Across the way from me was my friend Shoba, whose cousin was in Houdini, so he used to be there all the time. I
hmm,
used to be at the Friendlies, I used to work at the Friendlies, which was pretty much about the 3-4 blocks from my house.
hmm,
And it was an iconic Friendlies, and the reason for that is because every major hip hop star from the East Coast would always be there, because it's right in Uniondale, right in between, and near Hempstead and Roosevelt and Freeport and so forth, and
right,
everybody would congregate over in that one Friendlies. So for years, people like Salt and Peppa, and like I said, LONS, which I knew, and Houdini and LL, and what do you call it? EPMD, and
hmm,
Black Sheep, and you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
all these cats used to come in, and Public Enemy all the time.
hmm,
And it's funny because about, oh Lord, maybe about 6 years ago, 7 years ago at this point, I was in LA signing for Kamikaze, which was when Stan was alive, Stan Lee.
hmm,
It was the show that Stan was a part of. And Stan was a good friend of mine, and Stan would call me up every year. So Brimstone, do you think you could come out and do something for for the Kamikaze and hang out with old Stan? Yeah, of course, whatever you need, Stan. So what do you call it? So I'd go out and I'd sign out there. And I wound up going with, don't mind me, I just gotta fix my ears here. What do you call it? I went out after the event with my buddy DMC, from Run DMC,
right,
and a couple other people, and we went out to hang out backstage at Black Eyed Peas because they
hmm,
were in town. And Taboo is fantastic, and
hmm,
Taboo and D and I were all sitting around, and everybody was like hanging out. And what do you call it? As we're sitting and having the conversation, what do you call it? Which again, being a fly on the wall of that kind of a conversation is just insane. But what do you call it? While that was going on, apparently Flav was there, and he was walking
hmm,
off stage. Now I haven't seen Flav since I was little, but I kind of have the same face. And
hmm,
he gets off and he looks at me, and he's like, and I was like, yeah, you know me. I was like, and he's looking at me, he goes, why? I know you, and I know the face. And I'm like, Uniondale, New York, Friendlies on Jerusalem Avenue. He goes, oh my God. And a huge hug and pounds, and what do you call it? we caught up, and he's like, I heard you wound up wrestling and blah blah blah, and but yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's me, man. So what do you call it? We reconnected then, which was awesome. And he's in and out. Again, we all have such crazy varying schedules that
Right.
don't necessarily get to see people all the time, but they're always up here and in here. So but it was great to reconnect.
Wow, that is wonderful. Such a rich childhood, and wow, rich adolescent life, and probably rich young adulthood life just from that alone. Wow. Okay.
Experiences to me are worth more than money. Accomplishments to me are worth more than money. I absolutely, am proud of where I came from. I still represent Uniondale to this day. And at the end of until the end of time, that's where I came from. You don't change your past. You can't
Right.
change your past. All you can do is be proud of what you did and where you came from. Some people like to hide the things they've done, or that where they've come from, and they're ashamed of things. It's like, no, that's what helped to create you. That's what made you who you are. You know what I mean? That's what makes you original. So to this day, I'll always represent Uniondale, and always represent Long Island, New York. It is what it is. Strong Island.
More Brimstone when we come back.
I want to do a TED Talk, but I don't have anything to talk about yet. I'm getting there.
Life is for the living. We're not here that long.
You can learn anything you want to learn without any money spent.
What do I really enjoy? What do I really want out of life?
I am your host, WIZE.
Are you in a life holding pattern? Well, this is for you. Welcome to the Stuck in My Mind podcast. There's a 100% chance of a laugh thunderstorm. Four men with different viewpoints take a movie, show, or documentary and review it uncensored, unfiltered, uncompromised, with no holds barred. Join BS3, Wilkes, King Doc, and H-Rap B as they take on Hollywood their own way. BS3 Network proudly presents The Forecast, where H-Rap B always predicts,
if I owe you something, I ain't got it. And if you need it, get it from God.
live every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Central. Check your local listings for your viewing and listening pleasure. Let's see. Actor, voice actor, musician, serial entrepreneur, and all sorts of other things. Brimstone joins me here on Revelations. He's definitely opened the way. And we're going to debut a new segment because this guy is so special of a talent that we have to introduce something different. So I think it's time we go up in Ascension. Now, at Ascension, we rise with the times. So you, sir, were an actor at an early age. So when did you first become an actor, and did you like being a child actor?
So, what do you call it? I started probably, I had to been 5 or 6. What's funny, and I'll share it with you. So here, you can see on my, I gotta be careful with what I show, but if you see my SAG-AFTRA card here, shows since 1980. So I've been in the industry for quite some time. What do you call it? I started like, I was born in 74. So,
Mhm.
I was young when I
Yeah.
started. So 1980,
Mhm.
I,
Yeah.
I is when I started my career. I was about 6.
Mhm.
And what do you call it? At the end of the day, I started Sesame Street. I started on Romper Room. And my mom was thinking, well, he's cute. Let's put him on TV and try to get him into things. And it's funny because well, it's not funny. My mother passed away a few years ago.
Right.
And what do you call it? What is funny is that while going through all the stuff in the house, we found a whole bunch of my old paperwork for, obviously for acting and so forth. And
Mhm.
and what's crazy is I had more agents then than I have now.
Wow.
I was represented pretty well. And so like I said, did Sesame Street, did Romper Room. Then I did a whole bunch of auditions. I remember just very few things. I remember auditioning for what do you call it? Rice Krispies, for A1 steak sauce. I did a few things. I don't remember everything. But at the end of the day, I was a kid, and that's where it started. And it was great from what I remember. I was a little freaked out because on the set of Sesame Street,
Mhm.
there were things that as a kid you don't understand. And
Right.
what do you call it? There was one point where Big Bird, who's Carol Spinney, who I reconnected with well later in life, so he walks over, and we were off screen, and it was the end of the episode, and my mom and I were standing there, and he comes over and he starts talking, and to my mother, and then two guys come over and they pull the top half of Big Bird off of
Mm.
off his body, and now there's a man on the inside of Big Bird. I'm going, oh my God, they just killed Big Bird. I was like, what's going on? There's a man inside of him. What's going on? And then as they're carrying off the head, I turn around and I see Snuffleupagus in the rafters. I go, oh my God, they killed Snuffy. Like what? Like,
Oh man.
yeah, so I was freaking out as a kid. Yes, you don't know, you don't understand.
Right.
What do you call it? I don't know. I don't know. It was a really interesting time. It was a really interesting time in my life. And my mother and my father, since they'd been split, if you've ever been or people that are coming from a divorced home,
Mhm.
sometimes there's back and forth and tugging of tug of war on the kids. So
Right.
there were days that my father wanted to see me, so my mother couldn't bring me into the city for auditions and blah blah blah. And there was so my child my child acting kind of was cut short, where it could have probably been a lot bigger than it was. And it is what it is, though. Time goes by, and I found my love of comic books, and
Right.
what do you call it? And then I found I found my love of comic books, and I wanted to draw. Again,
Mhm.
everything came full circle. When I met Stan Lee, I used to read all his books. So
Mhm.
and then I became Stan's friend and the celebrity spokesperson for his foundation. I mean, that was mind blowing. Now, I didn't draw my comics, but that came full circle also, and I
Mhm.
wound up with my own comic book series, and helped to build the universe, and what do you call it, create the characters and write the book, and
Mhm.
along with another writer and a friend of mine, Marcello Carnevale. And that was my first love, but then my first true love,
Mhm.
outside of the ladies, but my first true love came in the form of music. And
Yes.
I'm, like, again, I have a hip hop background. My first cassette was the Fat Boys. You know what I mean? Which is
Mhm.
really, really funny because I just had Apache Ramos from the Warriors
Mm.
on the Grindhouse Radio, and
Mhm.
I didn't realize this, but apparently he was the Fat Boys tour manager way back when, which I
Oh,
had no idea he was a part of that whole situation. And
I didn't either. Okay.
fantastic story, and trust me, he has no problem telling it. He goes on forever. And I think I talk a lot. Apache, he goes on forever. So but anyway, he I had the Fat Boys, what do you call it? I had Run DMC, I had, what I mean, I had all hip hop before any rock ever came into the picture.
Yeah.
So I really loved, the hip hop beats and so forth. And when I was in school, I was in elementary. First, they give you the little, what do they call that thing
The
again?
recorders.
The recorders. Oh my
Mhm.
God. Somebody needs to get shot. Whoever came up with those things. I have 3 kids, and I went through it with all 3 of them. But then they gave me the opportunity. Well, I'm sorry. Then it went to violin, and and the people that can play violin are fantastic. But
yes.
you know what I'm saying? I wasn't for me. Do I look like a violin kind of guy to you? And I could be, but anyway. But so then they outside of orchestra, then they allowed us to do band, and and then band, was they get this, well, what would you like to do? And there was drums, and I go, I want to do that. And the rest was history. I wound up playing, and and it was fantastic. I became a drummer, and I drummed all through, college, and went to school for music, and out of college, and toured with music, and loved music tremendously. It was really, I fell in love with it. And the cool thing is what I believe made me unique at the time, because now everybody kind of does it, but back when, people didn't merge rap and and hip hop with heavy metal and rock. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I was in some heavy bands, because I was put into a right when I was supposed to be going into middle school. My mother put me into a private school, and so I went from being one of the only white kids in the school to being in an all white school where most of them were rich and all of them were Jewish. So I was the kid that used to be in class in Uniondale, having to tell everybody and teach them about Hanukkah and Purim and all that other stuff. So now I'm just like, it was super culture shock. But anyway, I wound up playing rock and then metal, but I would throw a hip hop beat behind all the rock music. You know what I'm saying? So, I might throw in like a steady groove, and then all of a sudden I'd throw it back and like, you know what I mean? Just like throw some hip hop in there, because, that's what I loved. I always loved that. And even today, I mean, I've got 2 tracks that I'm working on with some friends. One with my friend Law from Amy Winehouse band when she was still alive, and another one with a couple of friends I can't tell you about, and but I'm rapping on them. You know what I mean? I'm spitting. So
nice.
hopefully they'll work out well, and I won't look like too much of a white boy. But at the end of the day, Eminem did okay. I'm just messing around, but it's for me, it was hip hop was life. And it still isn't. It's funny because people, when they see me, they automatically assume that I'm just a metal guy, and it's like, and I like metal. I love it. I love heavy stuff and all that. But it's all hip hop, man. When I'm driving in the car, for the most part, I'm grooving to anything that has a hip hop beat. You know what I mean? Whether it's old school, new school. I'll throw in some Onyx. I'll throw in any of the boys from the East Coast. Then I go out to the West Coast with Snoop and Dre, and you know what I'm saying? Like, get a little crazy with Bizarre. You know what I mean? Like, I love the style, and I love everything about it. But yeah, so music was my first love. I know I got off track, but it's been a day.
No, well, I understand. One, I understand, and 2, I figured that music would be your first love, considering when you talked about it in Open Way, you being surrounded by so many hip hop artists. It's like, okay, so music must be his first love. And I do love the fact that you also say, well, yeah, I do look like a guy who probably listens to metal, and I love it, but hip hop really is my thing. And I'm similar. I mean, it's I love listening to hip hop, but I do have an ear toward metal, and whenever I am around mixed company, and I will probably sing a metal song, I have jaws drop. So I totally understand what you mean. Totally,
it happens more often than you'd think. A lot of Law Law, what do you call it? He is an amazing musician, but like I said, he's from Amy Winehouse band, and what do you call it? He came up with like P-Funk and played with them, and George Clinton's like his godfather and all that type of stuff. But he loves rock and metal, man, and it's funny because he'll sit and give you the history and everything. He's a black guy. He's a black guy. You know what I mean? But so, for me, I see no color, so I don't care. You know what I mean? If you're white, black, Latino, Asian, doesn't make a difference to me. It's and music is that language that you can vibe no matter who you are, where you're from. So people need to stop seeing color. People need to stop seeing race and just see people. You know what I mean? And it's just. It is what it is. Oh, why? Because you're black, you can't like rock music, and I'm white, so I can't like hip hop. What's really funny is that the world right now is probably more white kids listening to hip hop than there are black kids listening to hip hop.
Oh,
listening to hip hop.
Hip hop. You're right. You're probably right about that. Back with more Brimstone. This is Revelations.
That's why we here on this platform.
Marriage, a loving splendor, a daily grind. Such is the case when Damien and Jamie get together and chop it up, for marriage is real.
Let's just lay it all out here. Let's just be real with it.
Join this wonderful couple who keeps it real and always in love. BS3 Network proudly presents Marriage is Real, where love is the only thing that matters. Live every Tuesday at 8:30 Central. Oh, and Jamie has something to say.
Deuces and trays.
Discouragement, sorrow, distance. Your arguments cause damage to your family. The hurt leads to divorce. You feel like there is nowhere else to turn. But there is hope for you. That's where we come into play. There is an overcomer that lives inside of you. One ready to take on the world as you leap for joy, living in victory. You'll grow to love yourself and others. There's life after divorce, and you can claim it today. Get Over Divorce, where your new story begins here every Thursday on YouTube and Spreaker. Well, former wrestler, author, entrepreneur, radio personality, actor, and voice actor, amongst other things, Brimstone joins me here on Revelations. He's opened the way. We have taken the flight into new heights with Ascension. I think now it is time for us to get behind the purpose. Now, with Behind the Purpose, this is the reason why we function the way we do. And obviously, he has mentioned some of those things, being a wrestler and being a musician. Those are two of those facets. But you also are in the radio game. So why, how, and why did you create the Grindhouse Radio?
So my whole career, everything is more or less next natural progression. I believe in the next natural progression of everything I do. So, with the pro wrestling, the next natural progression was, what are superheroes? What are wrestlers? They're superheroes. They're larger than life characters. So why not take that superhero and take them out of the ring and make the comic book? From the comic book, what do you call it? The Brimstone and the Borderhounds comic. What's the next natural progression? Well, animation and kids books and toys and X, Y, and Z. You see what I'm saying? So the next natural progression was that. Then when I started going on the road to promote the comics and the kids books and all that, I started touring again, and I wanted to see, rather than touring and not seeing anything again, like I did earlier in my life with the wrestling and with the music. I wanted to start seeing the cities that I was going to. So, we started doing a show called Food Hound Tidbits while I was on tour. So Food Hounds, allowed me to get out there and see lots of things. So now the next natural progression for Food Hounds was, sauces and seasonings and so forth, and coffee line. And you see what I mean? Now, all that stuff also wound up going into the comic book. Trust me, I'm getting to your question. So all that stuff wound up being in the comic, and everything that you can buy in real life is also in the comic, and vice versa. So this way, it's all kind of next natural progression type of stuff. Now, with all of that said, and me being away and on the road quite often, I missed a lot of my kids growing up, and being away from my wife is never fun. I never sleep well. I never do well when I'm away from home for more than a couple of days. I'm just, it's not comfortable for me, because I've been with my wife for 20 years. So that being said, I had always loved to, I love to talk. I've always had an interest in radio, just like I have interest in TV and film and all that other stuff. And I'm the kind of guy that if I want to do something, I'm going to do it, and I will do the best I can to make it into a success. That being said, I had been interviewed hundreds of times on all the local, networks. And we're talking about every single one of them. They all know me. They all know me well. And I figured, what? I'd like to spend more time at home. And I came up with this idea. I know a lot of people. I can talk. I know how to get people on air that nobody else is going to get, because of my friendships with them. I said, I can pitch a really cool show to all these networks, and we'll see what happens. So, maybe that'll keep me home, and maybe I can tour a little less. So I wound up going. I reached out to everybody I knew. Crickets, Cole.
Oh, no.
Crickets. All I got was crickets.
Oh, man.
I was like, okay, fair enough. So whenever I'm told no or doors closed, that makes me take 2 steps back, and then I take 10 steps forward. And I will never take no for an answer. So if you're not going to do it for me, you're not going to work with me, I'll just do it myself, and I'm going to do it better. So that being said, I had the idea, the Grindhouse Radio. Why the Grindhouse Radio? Because I'm always working, always on the grind, always making things happen. Grindhouse also has to do a little bit with horror, even though this is not a horror show whatsoever. The Brimstone character has a history in that genre. I also did horror modeling. Remember, I said everything fits into each other. Now, I started to and also one of my seasonings is the Grindhouse seasoning. So like I said, everything was tied together. So that being said, the Grindhouse seasonings and the comics and everything worked together. So the Grindhouse Radio was the idea. I bought the IP. I made sure that I had all the stuff that was needed to do it. And like I said, that was the first womp womp, and didn't get that. And then I had conversations with a couple of people and some internet radio people. And when I say some people are really shady and to steer clear, some people are really shady, you need to steer clear. So I steered clear. And I wound up saying, okay, I'm just going to put this on the shelf for right now, because sometimes, even though you have a really big love for something, even though you want to put everything you have into the things that you want to see happen in this world, It might not be the right time. You know what I mean? It might not be today, might not be tomorrow, but another year from now, it's the right time.
Right.
You know, so that's why, you know, you have to be patient. Things don't happen right away. Things you can't have immediate gratification all the time, even though the kids today don't realize that. You know, the fact
You're
is
correct.
that you know, so the fact is I took it and I put it on the shelf, even though I had everything, and I waited. About a year later, not even, I wound up getting a couple of interns that came in and started working with me because I opened up Hound Comics Inc. Hound Entertainment Group. I had my corporate offices and I had my showroom, and so they were working for me. And you know, and they had a radio background. They did it in school and so forth. I was like, hey, you know, what would you think about, you know, maybe doing a show together? And they were like, sounds interesting. Why not? Let's have a conversation. So one day after hours, we sat around a microphone in the middle of the office with, you know, an empty desk where everybody was already out. We were on a main road. You heard the cars whizzing by outside. You know, it was you know, a very interesting situation. But the hour went by and we go, all right, this is something. And the Grindhouse Radio was born, brother. We were an hour show for the first 6 to 8 months, and then iHeart at the time didn't just have anybody on iHeart. iHeart called us and recruited us, and we were featured on iHeart. And you know, and that's when we went to a 2-hour show. And you know, about another 6 months after that, I started dealing with you know, the people that wanted to start sponsoring and advertising with us, and you know, and the rest is history. So the Grindhouse Radio was born, and since then, just to, if you want to, if I can remind you, I said that what am I going to do if you don't want to help me do it? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it better. So for 4 years straight, we won best radio station on Long Island for 4 years straight over all the terrestrial radio stations. We're a 2-hour show once a week, a podcast. So what do you call it? We beat all of them. Not that they're not good, but we just a little bit better. Yeah.
I love that. I love the fact that when you do something, you want to be the best at it. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
At least try. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, or at least attempt to do it. Yeah.
At least you know, but do it the right way. You know, you know, and if you're going to do something, you know, aside from, first of all, if you can do something, do it right.
Of course.
Second of all, be committed. 3, give back. You know what I mean? Give back to the community in every which way possible. Give back to the community that you're involved in terms of, you know, if you're a podcaster, give back to the podcast community. Musician, give back to the music community. An actor, give back to the acting community. But also on the humanity side, you know, the community itself. Help those what do you call the people that are less fortunate. You know, be a part of charities. Go and spend some time, show some love, give a little bit of yourself to them. I'm not saying go give them money. You know, you don't have money to give them a little bit of time. Time is money. People will appreciate that. You know, like you know, I've been, not that I needed the honor, but I mean, we got a 2020 New York State Senate Award from Senator Kevin Thomas, who's now a good friend of mine. After over the years, we've gotten to know each other. And it was for the contributions that we made in the community when COVID hit. I said we need to do something. I heard that the local food pantries were out, and they were having a problem. You've got these kids, especially the families that have kids that are in school that rely on school meals to feed, you know what I mean, their kids, you know, and to make sure they have a balanced meal. And I said, we can't, you know, the schools are shut down. We can't let these kids go hungry. We can't let people go hungry. So between the Grindhouse Radio, and then I contacted my people over at Walmart, and, you know, and so forth. And I was like, hey, I need to get some things together. And everybody jumped to it. We did a nice chunk of money that was put down. And I went there personally, and I did all the shopping for them and delivered all the food and supplies. So when I say give back, give back. You know what I mean? You know, time, effort, It's all about, giving back. And you know what? Not only are you doing good for someone else, you're going to feel good about it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I don't do it to get an award. I didn't do it to get nobody knew. I didn't call the news. I didn't call, other people go, oh, look, I just gave a check for this much money. Yeah, all right. Well, that's very nice. Obviously we know what you're looking for. There were no news. There was nothing. The only thing I did on my Instagram, I posted a couple of pictures and a video. And I said, I want to try to urge all of you to go out and do the same type of a thing. Please go out there and help other people. And that was the message I wanted, not pat me on the back for doing this. That's not what I want. I want you to go out and do it too. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I totally know what you mean.
So that's why the Grindhouse was born. That's how I did it, and that's where kind of where I am right now. I do the Grindhouse. I do all the business for the Grindhouse. I have my partners. And we do our thing. Every week, and we have some of the biggest names in the industry on, and 95% of them I'm honored to call my friends that if they jump on the show, not just because we have a big audience, but because, they are a friend of mine, you know what I mean? And they trust me. So.
We'll be right back with more Brimstone on the other side.
Of course, Steph Curry, Tim Anderson, Jordan Alvarez. And it's caught! Debo Samuel with the catch.
Michael Jordan can sense.
The Fro just got the king.
BS3 Network.
The hottest of hot takes. The coldest of cold hard facts. This is Snowman in the Morning with Cole Johnson. Weekdays at 8 a.m. Eastern. Check your local listings for your viewing and listening pleasure. This is a BS3 Network presentation. Politics.
They'll write the law, but they'll enforce it differently. Is that going to apply both ways?
Religion.
God never said that we can't reason together. Matter of fact, he said, let us sit and reason together.
Relationship.
I believe that everybody wants and needs somebody.
From a man's perspective.
They say, girls, if I put some polish on that and get him to buy some different clothes, girl, he could be a winner chicken dinner.
Join the thought engineer.
There's nothing wrong with me developing my piece and you developing your piece, but understand the goal is to come together.
And comedian John Yogi.
Negro, I don't need you putting on no chapstick up there in the pulpit. You do that over there in your chair.
Get ready for
Let's Talk Monday. Woo!
Live every Monday at 7 p.m. Central. You want to watch these interviews commercial free? Well, now you can. Revelations is on Patreon. Become a patron today. Actor, voiceover actor, former wrestler, and serial entrepreneur, along with radio personality and CEO of the Grindhouse Radio. Brimstone joins me here on Revelations. He has opened the way. He has taken that flight in Ascension. He has given us the reason why he is the way he is, and now it is time to bring it all to light. Now, all of us shine in a unique way, and obviously you, sir, shine in a unique way yourself. Now, you have so many business interests. It is crazy to think of and conceive. You have interests in food, in gaming, in toys, and you've mentioned you're in you're in radio as well, along with other ventures as well. What businesses would you avoid becoming an owner or a partial owner of in any form?
I mean, I don't know. I kind of done a little bit of everything. There's not necessarily. All right, one thing that I wouldn't do anything drug related. Even I would. No, probably wouldn't even do anything that's legal, but nothing drug related. I'm not into the whole weed thing. No offense to the people that are. I mean, you're more than welcome to do whatever you want to do with your own bodies. It's just not something I'm into. I don't support any of the CBD stuff, whether it's amazing for people or not. I just don't do it. I've been asked countless times to do, some kind of CBD oils and I can't do it. It's not something that I want to support. I've done a little bit of everything. I even had a novelty item in the adult industry. I mean, that was one of my first products, you know what I mean? So, I would do pretty much almost anything that's legal and fun. So, if it's going to be something that's fun and interesting and people will enjoy and I'll enjoy bringing into the universe, then let's do it.
You have interests in horror, yet you also write children's books. How do you properly and successfully tap into each of those creative sides?
Well, they're all different genres, and at the end of the day, one, you study the genre. Two, you study what you're going to do before you do it. You should be a student of whatever lessons you want to teach. You know what I'm saying? Because you can never become a teacher until you're a student, and you never stop being a student. So you always want to build, you want to grow, you want to learn. Whatever you are, you're getting involved in and engaging yourself in. And in terms of horror, I mean, the Brimstone of the Border Hounds book, like the comic, it's horror, sci-fi, religion, but it's not religion like in a bad way or a good way. It's just comic book stuff.
Right.
And it's just everything kind of mashed up all in one. And it does have the horror side to it. And the fact of the matter is there are a lot of people that read the comic that also have children. And one thing that I always found awesome in with my kids growing up is that we could share characters that are iconic, like the Hulk, Spider-Man, Captain America, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. You know what I mean? We know these names. We love these names. Well, for the readers of the Brimstone of the Border Hounds, comic book, I wanted the parents that were reading the comic to be able to vibe with the same characters that the kids were reading. You know what I'm saying? Because, you want to see and you think, as the kids' books, what are you thinking? Bernstein Bears, Clifford, you know what I mean? Things like that, the big red dog and stuff like that. Why not have the kids' book that is shaped just like and familiar, as the Bernstein Bears? And I did that on purpose to make sure it was the same size, so it fits in their hands the same way that other books do, and very familiar. And they can now vibe with the same characters that their parents do, and they can say, "Oh, little Brim did this, but we're learning a lesson." You know what I mean? And blah blah blah, and now it all kind of works together. Now the other side of all of that, now and that's why I I'm able to do both in that scenario.
Right
now, here's the other thing. Guy like The Rock, okay, guy like The Rock, he does stuff where he's foul mouthed, and he does stuff where he's on Disney. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's a separation there. Just because there's, you have you can have an audience that kind of comes in and out of everything, as long as you are a responsible person and a responsible human being when you're offset and off camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel that you can vibe with different audiences. So yes, I can go and do a horror convention. I can also go and do a kids convention. I can also go do, a wrestling convention. I could also go do, a sporting event. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could do different things, and kind of mesh nicely in and out of all of these different genres. I have always enjoyed working that fine line.
Actor, voice actor, owner, radio personality, author, former wrestler, amongst so many other interests. Which one of those are you most proud to have achieved?
What do you call it? My biggest achievement is my family, my kids, my wife. That's my biggest achievement. Everything else is just, topping on the cake. You know what I mean? Or on the ice cream. You know what I mean? Like, I do it all for my family, and some of it is my ego. Some of it, but I do it for my family because I want to leave a legacy for my family that even when after I'm gone, they'll be able to look back and go, you know what, our dad was awesome, and he did so much, not just for himself, not just for us, but for other people. I want my wife to be able to go to bed with me at night, being proud of me, knowing that, I did everything in my power to make sure that our family was taken care of. And, for my fans, I want to make sure to leave a legacy that they're going to love and respect and appreciate, and that's that, man. Everything else, you know what? I loved music. I stopped doing music, not because I didn't love it, just because, I did what I had to do there. And yeah, I can always go back, but same thing with wrestling, and, the voice work and the radio, you never know, maybe one day that'll stop too. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I could always pick it back up and enjoy it for what it is. And I don't love any one more than the other. Each one has its own je ne sais quoi to it. You know what I mean? Like wrestling and the drumming. I loved the fact that I was being able to be physical. I loved the physical aspects of it. I loved the charisma and the attitude and the drive to be in the ring or behind the drum kit, and in front of a crowd of thousands of people, you know what I mean? Up and down to a crowd of 50 people, you know what I mean? And just vibing off other people. But I get that same vibe when I'm doing this with you. I'm working off your energy. And when I'm doing the Grindhouse and or my Dirty Little Secrets Club, I do with Dana, which is another great show. And I do with Alex, I do with Brimstone. And it's the energy I get from the other people is similar, even though it's a smaller grouping of people or a one-on-one type of position. It's the same energy, just slightly different than I did when I was wrestling, and you know what I'm saying? And you're just working with. So for everything is great, but the answer to your question is family is, my biggest accomplishment.
You couldn't have nailed that any better.
Oh, thank you.
Perfect. Yes. And I agree. That is your biggest achievement by far.
Although you don't know my kids. They're a little bit of I'm just messing with you. I have great kids.
Author, voice over actor, serial entrepreneur, but most of all and most importantly, husband and father. Brimstone joins me on Revelations. And now we come to the time and the part of the show we call Plug Tunin. And I think my man knows where that comes from. And this is where we have our guest, him or her, in this case, him, get to actually plug whatever they want. So they can promote whatever they want without any interruption from me. So Brimstone, the floor is yours.
Well, I mean, the best place to find out anything about me is my official website, therealbrimstone.com. If you what do you call it, so you go there, you can find all my social media, everything about me, pretty much almost everything that I do and have done is up there. Not everything, but a lot of information is there. The place I spend the most time on social media is Instagram at the real brimstone. It's verified, you'll know it's me. If you go to any of your social media that uses GIFs, if you use at GHR or put in Brimstone, 95% of the time you're going to get me. So you can use me in your GIFs, and always feel free to tag me if you do. I love to see it. And yeah, man, catch me on the Grindhouse Radio, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every single Thursday night. It's when the new episodes drop. Tuesdays is a big day because Within Brim Skin is always out, and also Dirty Little Secrets Club comes out, and that's a little bit more of a risque show. Dirty Little Secrets Club, and Within Brim Skin, I'm a little bit more of a mouthier cat. So just beware before you tune into those things.
Well, we will have all of that information in show notes and in the content area as well. And we're so thankful that we had you on the show, man. Author, voiceover actor, serial entrepreneur, overall good guy. Brimstone, joining me on Revelations. Thank you, sir, very much.
I appreciate it. Pleasure to be here. Honor and a privilege. And can't wait to meet you in person, brother.
Likewise.
They say you should never judge a book by its cover. If I judged the Book of Brimstone based on appearances alone, I would have been turned off by him. However, getting to know this man was a pleasure and a learning experience. It's a treat to be pleasantly surprised by meeting someone, and it pays to keep an open mind. After all, you never know how blessed you might be because of it. The Bible says, "A man who has friends must show himself friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." One of the greatest parts of having an interviewing platform like this is you get to meet different personalities. When you connect with somebody, it makes having a platform like this worthwhile. Getting to know a guy who has so many different interests is a joy all its own. And now I get to call Brimstone a friend of mine.
Many thanks to Brimstone for giving us his perspective on life. And why don't you join us here every Tuesday on YouTube, where you see a different person being interviewed by yours truly each and every week. For changing the world one conversation at a time, I'm Cole Johnson, and this has been Revelations.
Thank you for tuning into Revelations. To download this episode, go to Acast and type Revelations. For apparel, go to Spring and type Revelations. Music by Lakey Inspired.